Well, thank you very much for that really warm reception. It's very nice to arrive in and have that big pink lantern outside, telling everyone that we're here because it's lit up purple outside. So it's really an absolutely great privilege tonight for me to be here warmly welcoming you all, party members, ambassadors, and invited guests to our very first conference, our very first national conference of the Social Democrats. So you're really very warmly welcomed. And what I want you to do with me, just imagine something with me. Let's imagine that, how different Ireland could be in, say, 10 years' time. An Ireland without the indignity of homelessness. An Ireland where homes are affordable and where tenure is secure and communities where people are proud to live. An Ireland where we have a health system free at the point of delivery and where it's accessible to all. Where we prioritise the mental health and the well-being of our people. An Ireland where the resources are allocated based on evidence and where investment in public services is prioritised over tax cuts. Imagine an Ireland where strategic investment in infrastructure has delivered a thriving economy and a sustainable environment. An Ireland with a system that is capable of dealing with corruption. An Ireland where the 8th Amendment in the Constitution is gone. We need to start thinking of the next generation, and we need to think beyond the next general election. Imagine a more equal Ireland, a society that others want to replicate, where social justice and equality are, the basis that inform all of our decisions. Friends and delegates, what we need to do is we need to imagine much more than that. We can't simply hope that things will get better. Now is our time, and this is our responsibility. Tonight we're setting out our vision. We're setting out on a road to translate that vision into plans that people can believe in and where people will join with and help us make it happen. We fundamentally believe that the social democracy is the vehicle through which we can achieve that vision. And we believe that a strong, creative, prosperous, fair, equal and democratic country is not just an aspiration. It can and it should be Ireland's reality.
Here in Ireland and worldwide, we're living through some very turbulent times. People have a sense of alienation from a political establishment that has left many behind, that has forsaken the public interest for vested interests. Across the world, people are hurting and are seeking to lash out at an establishment that has hurt them. But lashing out is not enough. We want to replace anger with hope. Hope that things will be better for the many and not just for the few. Brexit and the unknown quantity of a Trump presidency have the potential to impact negatively on all of us and on our ability to compete on the world stage. We must not be passive observers. We cannot simply wait to see how the dominoes will fall. We must forge our own path. We must design the type of successful society and successful economy which other European countries have achieved. If they can do it, well, why can't we? Irish people have an intense sense of decency. In times of need, people come together, they give each other support. It's never said, but that is social democracy in action. And tonight, unfortunately and shamefully, there are hundreds of people on trolleys in hospitals without basic dignity or comfort. Children are being put to bed in cramped hotel rooms. Those hotels, built for tourists, are a parody of the tenements which we tore down decades ago. On our streets, this cold, dark winter evening, people huddle anywhere and everywhere for want of decent shelter. This is not the Ireland that we dream of. It is the nightmare which too many of our people cannot escape from. If we look at countries across the globe, we find that the most successful countries are those where the gap between rich and poor is the smallest. And what does that success look like? It is countries where health outcomes are better, where crime levels are lower, where educational achievement is higher, where life expectancy is longer, and most of all, where trust in politics is stronger. The countries that manage to achieve this are ones which strive towards equality of outcome. Invariably, the Nordic countries of Denmark, Sweden, and Finland deliver better on these successful outcomes. They are countries that tend to take a social democratic approach to politics and indeed to the provision of public services. Successful societies are those where decisions are based on evidence rather than on political whims, where resources are allocated based on need, not electoral advantage, where long-term planning is the norm. In July 2015, a number of us came together to establish this party, the Social Democrats. We understand our vision requires sustained effort to translate that vision into a reality. We know that nothing comes easy, but we are determined to deliver a true social democratic republic, a republic which recognises that achieving equality is about more than simply providing opportunities. It's about ensuring fair outcomes. We believe that by practicing politics with integrity, making decisions based on evidence, fighting for good governance, and shining a light into the far too many dark corners of political and public life in Ireland, that we can, if we do that, we can reinvigorate people's trust and interest in politics and in the decisions that shape their lives. We want to give people the kind of politics that they can believe in. We want to give people the kind of politics that they can trust in. We want a social democratic politics which has equality of outcome as its driving force.
At its heart, social democracy recognises that strategic investment in public services is the building block upon which equality of outcome is achieved, and providing high-quality public services is the best way to reduce the cost of living. Providing quality public services nurtures our people in ways that protects the weak, but it strengthens us all. Investment in public services such as childcare, primary care, education, public transport reduces the cost of living. It increases our economic competitiveness, and it strengthens our economy as well as our society. Instead, Ireland going from boom to bust is on a roundabout of short-termism and cynicism, and it always brings us back to where we began. The reform agenda in Ireland hasn't been driven by a big vision. It's been a code for a series of absolute savage cuts that decimated rather than transformed and reformed our public services. We've never had the kind of public services that are fit for purpose. We see it in our chaotic health service, in our ever-worsening homelessness and housing crisis, in our underfunded and disjointed public transport system in the second most expensive childcare costs in the world, and an educational system where parents increasingly are being asked to fund basic services, including things like heating costs for the schools. Our public services are not working because our state has abdicated responsibility to its people. For too long, the establishment has forgotten that the economy should serve society and not the other way round. As Social Democrats, we think differently. For us, public services are investments in our economy and, as a consequence, investment in our society. Our better educated, better housed, healthier people supports a stronger society and one which our economy will become stronger. Let no one doubt us. We will prioritise investment in public services over tax cuts.
William Beveridge, the founder of the NHS, once said, "A revolutionary moment in the world's history is a time for revolutions, not for patching up." We want a revolution of hope, a revolution of ambition, a revolution that inspires participation, that binds us all together, and that reimagines what we can be. Last year's wonderful marriage equality referendum was just such a revolution. It proved that Irish people are fair. It showed that far-reaching change in this country is possible. The challenge now is to bring that same thirst for an equal Ireland, that same passion for social justice, to all facets of public life in Ireland. And we have to start by addressing poverty. Ireland is still one of the wealthiest countries in Europe, but we have disgraceful levels of deprivation. 1 in 9 children experiences material deprivation on a daily basis. That means children going without a warm coat, children without a warm meal, children who can't afford to go to a friend's birthday party. Inequality, of course, isn't only about income. We see it in poor housing conditions, in lack of access to education, and in inadequate healthcare. Inequality doesn't only impact on the individuals, families, and communities who experience it on a daily basis. It also has severe, profound negative consequences for our wider society. Exclusion and poor outcomes, of course, don't happen by accident. They happen as a result of legacies of disadvantage, repeated through generations, that make it hugely challenging for children born into poverty to ever have a fair chance. A poor child is highly likely to become a poor adult. Poverty robs children of their childhood. It is time to end this scandal. We have to invest in professionals at the coalface of change: health workers, family support workers, teachers, preschool staff. We must invest in health promotion and primary care services in those communities that need them the most. We have to properly resource community childcare. We must develop a new anti-poverty strategy with clear and ambitious targets. And our goal must be to end consistent child poverty by 2021. There can be no dispute but that Ireland is not a society of equals. 1 in 8 people in Ireland has a disability or suffers from a mental health condition. They are significantly at greater risk of poverty, social exclusion, unemployment, and lack of opportunity in education and training. Ireland shamefully has failed to ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which was agreed back in 2006. 150 other countries across the world have done so. Why haven't we? The Social Democrats call for the immediate ratification of that UN Convention so we can afford dignity and opportunity to all of our citizens.
A test of any social democracy or any fair society is the capacity to house its people. Our housing sector in its current form has lost the concept of a home. This fundamentally destabilises society. If people don't feel that they can make a home, that they can put down roots, then communities become transient and unstable. Housing costs are soaring. Many working people have no choice but to seek higher wages to buy or rent a home. Disastrous policy decisions on housing have devastating knock-on effects in society for years and perhaps for generations. Across our cities and towns tonight, we'll find increasing numbers of people living on the streets, or families sleeping on couches with friends or relatives, unsure of where they or their children will put their heads down tomorrow night. You will find people paying ever higher proportions of their income on rent or mortgage payments and absolutely terrified of losing their homes. To buy an ordinary home in either Cork or Galway, you would need to be earning 5 times the average wage. That increases to 8 times the average wage for the same home in Dublin. Average rents have spiralled by 50% in the last 4 years alone. It's clear that there's no security for people renting. It's clear that buying a home is increasingly becoming a pipe dream for many, and that is simply not acceptable. The concept of a home as a basic human right was willfully replaced with the idea of the property ladder or an investment opportunity. The state has all but abdicated its duty to provide social housing, opting instead for its preferred outsourcing model. An increasing reliance on the free market, and we have to get back to providing, or we have to get back to what it means to provide a home and not just a property. The current housing and homelessness crisis not only scars the social fabric of our country, but it also undermines the competitiveness of our country and our labour market mobility. The government has lovely, shiny plans, but the progress is painfully slow. It is clear there's an implementation deficit. There needs to be concrete action, and we need to see that action now. The government must take immediate steps to ensure long-term rent certainty. Last year's measures will expire for many in a few weeks, and they urgently need to be extended. We are also calling for the immediate links of rents to the consumer price index until there's sufficient housing to drive down rents. We have to immediately free up the 200,000 more than 200,000 vacant homes across the country. And there are straightforward things that can be done and can be done now. The vacant site levy must be brought forward to bring those sites currently lying idle into development for housing. We need to drive down the cost of housing and bring ordinary homes within the reach of ordinary incomes. We need to build a strong building sector, but we have to reduce building costs, and that includes finance, and it includes planning delays. And the government absolutely must challenge the EU fiscal rules which limit their capacity to invest in housing. The current constitutional framework is a profound obstacle to dealing with the many problems in housing. Article 43 seeks to balance private property rights with the common good. But too often the interpretation of that article means that the common good loses out. This holds us back on issues such as rent caps and on rent certainty, and it also impacts on upward-only rent reviews, which add greatly to business costs and indeed the cost of living as a knock-on to that. We are living in the middle of an absolutely devastating housing crisis. Surely, if our constitution is the impediment to dealing with that crisis, well then let's have a referendum to deal with that.
This afternoon, we talked passionately about transparency in public life. There's too little transparency and accountability in the institutions which govern us. Much of the cause of that lies in the fact that we inherited those institutions rather than designing them for ourselves. And even those we did design were often the result of bad governance or a flawed political philosophy. A culture of secrecy pervades our politics. Far too often, decisions favour those in the know or those who are on the inside. That is destructive, it's corrosive, and it's offensive. Designing and building a political system that has accountability at its core is an imperative. A key aim of the Social Democrats is to promote open government. This means being transparent about political decisions. It means basing decisions on objective evidence. And it means getting value for money. Too often decisions about spending public money are shrouded in secrecy. They are more concerned with serving electoral interests than serving the public interest. And when things go wrong or mistakes are made, nobody ever takes the rap. How can we have accountability from ministers or from top civil servants when there are few consequences for incompetency or wrongdoing? When we in the Social Democrats talk about accountability, we actually mean real accountability. That means promoting good behaviour, initiative, and innovation. And it also means punishing bad behaviour. We need a new programme of reform for the civil and public service. Reform that starts at the very top. We want to bring about a culture of openness and competence, where the skills and talents of our civil and public servants are able to flourish properly, where the culture of the civil and public service is to actually serve the public, where the efficiency and excellence are the goal, and most of all, where accountability for ministers and top-level civil servants become the standard. And this means their jobs being on the line. It also means an end to golden handshakes, enhanced pensions, and EU jobs for the boys. We want to shine a light on the operation of government. We will work to repeal the Ministers and Secretaries Act, to remove the secrecy surrounding the relationship between ministers and their top civil servants. We will work to repeal the archaic Official Secrets Act. It needs to be replaced with legislation suitable for a progressive modern democracy and based on the principles of transparency and accountability. And whether in politics, in business, or in the public service, we know that we lack the means of dealing effectively with corruption or white-collar crime. Very few people in Ireland end up behind bars when they engage in corrupt acts. There is nothing more dispiriting than for people to witness a tribunal which has cost millions, make findings, only for those findings to be ignored and no action taken against wrongdoers. This results in the continuation of low standards in high places. It erodes both trust in politics and public confidence in the rule of law. That is why one of our earliest proposals was for an independent anti-corruption agency. This agency would be a key law enforcement body to tackle white-collar crime and corruption in corporate Ireland and in Irish politics. It would act as a standing commission of investigation, and so there would be no more need for expensive tribunals. It would have the power to investigate and to prosecute cases of corruption. It would have a key role in overseeing procurement and professional compliance. We have published detailed policy proposals in this regard, and we are now moving to drafting a bill which we will bring before the Dáil in 2017. Such agencies work very well in other jurisdictions. In Ireland, the Anti-Corruption Agency would create an even playing pitch for business. It would promote competition, and most importantly, it would act as a powerful deterrent to criminality and corruption.
The proclamation of 100 years ago visualised an Ireland we could be proud of. It hasn't materialised, but it can. The spirit and passion of that republic is embodied in our cultural and creative endeavours that transcend language, class, gender and ethnicity. The best of who we are is captured when we embrace that spirit and work together towards a shared vision. It is evident in our vibrant community and regional groups across the country, everything from the tidy town organisations to the sporting organisations to the arts sector that is lauded the world over for producing some of the finest artists in every discipline. Yet our political system is devoid of that passion. It encourages passivism rather than activism, the very opposite of what we are. It is a powerful force for change when citizens come together in solidarity and recognise their ability to shape their own society. We need to return power to the citizens and communities by radically reforming and strengthening local government. We must provide a mechanism where our vibrant community, voluntary and civic sector work in harmony with the political system and not grate against it. This approach will deliver a third sector similar to that which has worked so successfully in Sweden. If we were to build a more equal society, it is vitally important that we put the we back into political decisions. Along with building a flourishing and fair society, we need to build a robust and thriving economy. We must back business to grow and create jobs. We must support all engines of growth in our economy, our SMEs, our self-employed, our large companies, as well as our multinationals. We support maintaining Ireland's corporate tax rate at 12.5%, but the government must ensure that the full 12.5% is collected. We want to see Ireland's success in foreign direct investment mirrored for local businesses and for the self-employed. The government should improve funding to Enterprise Ireland to help businesses affected by Brexit and by the fall in sterling to find alternative markets. We need to become more self-reliant, invest in our people, and invest back into Irish businesses. We must lower business costs such as energy, insurance, and compliance. And we have to remove the obstacles that prevent rather than encourage the very thing that's the essence of our culture, and that is endeavour, enterprise, and effort. These qualities will create jobs right across the country. But the jobs we create must be meaningful jobs, and they must be fairly paid. We want to ensure that decent standards of employment, so that what happened to the workers in Cleary's or in Dunn Stores, or indeed to the pensioners in Aer Lingus or in the Waterford Crystal Company, can't happen again. Increasingly, workers are faced with the disgraceful uncertainty of zero-hour contracts and pay levels that are simply not sufficient to meet the cost of living in this country. We pledge to end zero-hour contracts and commit to the implementation of a living wage.
Irish society has changed. It has changed for the better in many ways. Just look at the vibrant nature of our multicultural and diverse population. To a large extent, we have thrown off the shackles of that kind of embedded guilt and repression and embraced much more progressive attitudes. But we must continue to work to rid our society of outdated discrimination. Too often, public opinion is far more advanced than the political system. Too many of our institutions have not kept pace with our changing society. One of the most fundamental principles of a modern republic is that citizens are not discriminated against because of any faith which they do or do not profess. Yet every year, religious affiliation is the very basis on which access is denied to a vital public service, education. The law of the land as it currently stands is that state-funded schools are perfectly entitled to refuse admission to local children as young as 4 because they are not signed up to a particular religious belief. Even schools which do allow access to children of different faith or no faith continue to expose those children to a religious ethos which they or their parents do not subscribe to. This is entirely unacceptable. In a modern democracy, our education system should reflect and respect the diversity of Irish society. We've long moved on from an organised religion dominating the lives of a large proportion of our people. Laws and public services need to catch up. It is a key priority of the Social Democrats to repeal Section 7(3)(c) of the Equal Status Act. This currently allows schools to favour certain religions when deciding on their enrolment policy. Incredibly, the government's school admissions bill, which is currently going through the Dáil, ignores this baptism barrier. We will be tabling amendments to that bill. It is time to finally end this outdated and unfair type of discrimination.
We've named sustainability as one of our core principles, and we mean that in every sense: our economy, our society, and our environment. Climate change is one of the biggest challenges facing the world today. We recognise the impact of political decisions, what they have on our environment. There are powerful interests who regard the environment as just another commodity to be exploited for profit. We must challenge that mindset at every opportunity. Implementing measures with a short-term objective cost us not only environmentally, but they also cost us financially in the longer term. That is why investment now in important services such as public transport, conservation measures and renewable energy is not only vital to protect the environment, it also makes sound economic sense. Such investments can support Irish innovation and put businesses at the forefront of the green economy. Ireland must implement the Paris Agreement on climate change and must be ambitious about achieving those targets. Over a year ago, people like you, and indeed yourselves, came forward and helped put this party in place. Together we fought a general election, and we built an organisation which has brought us to this point today, ready to make our vision of social democracy a reality. Together we've put in place solid foundations based on an inspiring vision and the values of equality, democracy, sustainability and progress. We now ask you to join us to build on these foundations a politics worthy and capable of delivering the type of society and republic that we're aiming to construct, where the vision in 10 years from now is one of a fairer society where citizens will play an active role, and where politics and public services are not the preserve of a golden circle, but are the means by which people exercise both the rights and responsibilities asked of them as citizens of a republic.
As Catherine said earlier, 100 years ago this year, just around the corner from here, a proclamation of great vision, determination and courage was delivered. A proclamation that captured the hopes of a generation. But those hopes have never been properly fulfilled. A century on now, we have the opportunity to reimagine the republic that was promised. And with the benefit of the lessons learned from past mistakes, never has that opportunity been greater. We're all here today as a new political party because we share an ambition for a new republic. A republic underpinned by the values of social democracy. And we know that we need great strength and effort to make that vision a reality. Social democracy is based on a shared commitment to the common good. That can only be achieved by the efforts of committed people like you here in the room tonight, working hard together. Together, we can build a movement that can change Ireland. Together, we can create a country we can really be proud of. And together, we can create a republic truly worthy of its name. Let's do it, everybody. Thank you.